Welcome back. This is video 22, using music theory to play any song. As you know, we're learning how to play She Loves You by the Beatles. In this video, we'll learn how to play the melody to the refrain part of the song. As you recall in the last video, number 21, we worked out the melody for the first two verses. The last chord we played was D dominant 7. So as a review, let's listen to that last part of the song.
She said she loves you, and you know that can't be bad. Yes, she loves you, and you know you should be glad.
Also, as we work out the melody to this song, it will help to remember that because Paul and John were such outstanding musicians and singers, the melody part of the song at times is hard to distinguish from the harmony. So for purposes of this video and all of the melody part of this song, I'm just going to consider Paul's part is the melody part because it's the higher part, and most of the time we're used to hearing in harmony the melody being higher and the harmony being lower. But the Beatles, like with everything, they changed that around, and you could go the other way just as well. That's part of the appeal to the Beatles, the fact that you could listen to the music in different ways. At the end of the second verse, and just before the refrain starts, the Beatles do that famous ooh part of the song with their iconic head shake. So before we go on, let's figure out which note the whoo part is on, and then we can dive into the refrain. To figure out what note the whoo part of the song is on, I'll use the action camera here on the piano. Remember the last chord they play before they do the whoo was a D7 from our chord sheet. So I'll show you that. It's a D, F sharp, A, and C. And then our whoo note is probably going to come from one of those. So let's start with D, since that's the chord we're playing. Now that sounds okay, but the problem is it's too low, because if you remember that it's pretty high when they do it. So let me try it an octave up. And that sounds pretty good. So right off the bat we got it just by looking at the chord sheet. I'll play the D chord now in the second position with the D on top. And so again, using the chord sheet, listening to the music, we can figure out what note to play. Okay, now that we know the who note, I'll play the refrain for you and we'll go through it one line at a time.
She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should be glad.
Okay, so I've taken the first two lines from the refrain and I've written them down here on the whiteboard. It's she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And from the chord sheet, we know that the first time I play it, it's accompanied by an E minor chord. And the second time we play it, it's accompanied by an A7 chord. That 7 just all by itself there means a dominant 7. You may remember the way to make a minor chord is to start with the major and drop the middle note a half step. So if this were an E major, it would be E, G sharp, and B. But because it's an E minor, we drop the middle note, this G sharp, a half step, which makes it a G natural. Here's the individual notes, E, G, B. Okay, and that's accompanied with the lyrics, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll just play that chord and kind of sing along with it and see how it sounds. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well that sounds okay. We're on the right track. So now let's pick out the actual melody notes on the keyboard and figure out what exactly we need to play to make that sound. We figured out the woo note was on D up here. And now we want to play the part where they go, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you'll notice when you play that high D, it sounds a lot like the note we want to start on. So my idea would be to start down here and see if that's going to work for us. So let's try She Loves. That's sounding real good because we know it goes up. She loves, and then it goes up higher even. She loves you. Remember that the first chord we play with this line is an E minor. And we're on the E here. She loves. And now we need to go up high. So let's try the next note in the E minor chord, which is G natural, because that note comes up a lot. The song's actually in the key of G. And let's see if that works. The point being, we're not going to pick F natural as our next higher note because that's unlikely to be in the song because it's not part of the key of G major. F sharp would be, and we could pick that, but F sharp's not part of E minor, and that's the chord we're playing to accompany this. So let's try G. So here we go. She loves you. Now we need to do the yeah, 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 which is coming downhill. And again, might be tempted to pick the F natural, but that's not part of the key of G major. So when we're coming downhill, let's pick the F sharp and the E, which are both part of the key. So let's try it. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And hopefully you can hear that that works. So by recognizing the key signature, G major, and the general movement of the melody up and down, we can pick out the notes that make up the melody. Again, it's D, E, G, G, F sharp, E. And to accompany that, we're playing an E minor. So here's how it goes. And although there is a little dissonance there when we play the F sharp, because it's not part of the E minor, it's a passing note. It passes by rather quickly, so our ears will accept that, especially since it gets resolved to the root of the chord, the E minor chord, by playing the E with it. So again, she loves you, yeah. Here's the dissonance, yeah, yeah, but it resolves to that. And that's all there is to the melody of the refrain as far as she loves you, yeah, 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 because it's repeated twice. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now the second time we play that melody, instead of playing an E minor chord with it, we play an A7, which is an A dominant 7. So just so you can hear what that would sound like, I'll put them both together. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the reason that works is that in the A dominant 7 chord, there is a G natural and an E natural. So that's the first half of the refrain. Now, I'm also going to take a moment to digress and show you another way you could find the notes if you're having a lot of trouble. This is an application for my Android phone called Note Recognizer, and it's free, and I downloaded it and installed it for this video. And what I wanted to show you is if you're having trouble figuring out a note or two in a song, you could sing it to your phone, and this phone will tell you what note you're singing. And our example at the moment is the She Loves You part of our song. So let me try to sing it here and see if it'll give us the right note. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Even though I went pretty fast, it still was able to show the notes that are in the song. So if you have a pretty good singing voice, I think this application could really help you figure out what note you're hearing in a song. We just figured out the first part of the refrain, she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it left us with down on an E note in this way. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now we have to figure out the with a love like that part. Let's start with the idea that we're in the key of G, and the chord on our chord sheet for this part is C minor 6. Now, C minor includes the notes C, E flat, and G. C, E flat, and G. That's because C major would be C, E natural, and G, and to make the minor, we drop the middle note a half step. That makes it E flat. So, what note does C minor, with the 6 on top, have in common with our key, which is G? Remember, G major is just GBD. The note they have in common is G. And that's a theme that's running through this song. So many of these chords involve G because it's in the key of G. So my temptation, if I don't know where to start, would be to start with G in this case, because the chord sheet shows me a C minor 6, and I know that the note that is in common between C minor and G is the G note. So we would go with a, and that sounds okay, then love like that. Now you might say, how did you know to go up to A there? That's not obvious at all. But actually it is obvious, because the chord sheet told us that this chord we're playing at this time is not just C minor, but C minor 6. And what that means is to add the 6th note of that scale to the chord, which is A. So that's a very strong clue when they make it C minor 6, that they want the 6th in there for a reason, and that's to pick up that melody note. So when we go up, we can go up to A, which is the 6th note of the C minor scale. So it's with a love like that. And now you can see why it goes up to A. Then the final part of the refrain is the "you know you should be glad." This is a little bit subjective here, and it's probably the hardest note to figure out in the whole song. What note are they going to here? The human voice can do things that the piano cannot. We're limited on the piano. We can't slide things. It's not like a violin or a trombone or a human voice. So we're going to have to pick some note that's close to this one. Now, it's either going to be a half step above it or a whole step above it if we want it to be close. It could be below, but you can hear from the tune that they actually go up there. So, with a love like that, you know you should be glad. It stays right in this area. You could go, with a love like that, you know you... And you notice I'm straining to get up there. It just sounds a little too high. No, you should be glad. And probably a lot of people would do that. To my ear, the half step sounds better, because if you listen to the song, you can tell they're trying to invoke a little tension there, and dissonance does that. And so the semitone, the two notes closest together, is the best you can do with the piano for that kind of dissonance.
You know you should be glad.
You know you should, and then be glad, which again, it just stays in this region. You just kind of dink around in here and you can figure that out.
You know you should be glad.
Again, it's subjective a little bit, what your ear wants to hear, and I would say that if you're confused about that note or wondering about that note, you can get something like a note finder application and test it. And now to review, I'll play the entire refrain in the vocal range that I would sing it, so you can see all the notes. Okay, that wraps up the melody from the refrain. In the next video, we'll see how the Beatles used that refrain in 3 different places in the song. See you then.
With a love like that, you know you should be glad.